You're listening to All Things Considered from NPR News. A classic work of children's literature is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year, The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster. To mark the occasion, Juster recorded this essay for us, explaining why he still identifies with his main character, a bored little boy who finds himself on a great adventure.
There was once a boy named Milo who didn't know what to do with himself. Not just sometimes, but always. When he was in school, he longed to be out, and when he was out, he longed to be in. Nothing really interested him, least of all the things that should have. The Phantom Tollbooth was the first book I had ever written and my first collaboration with the cartoonist Jules Feiffer. Like most good things that have happened in my life, the book came about because I was trying to avoid doing something else. It was 1958, and after 3 years in the Navy, I returned to New York City to work as an architect. I had also received a grant to write a book on cities for children. I started it with great energy and enthusiasm until I found myself waist-deep in stacks of 3x5 note cards, exhausted and dispirited. This is not what I wanted to do. In order to stop thinking about cities, I had to start thinking about something else. I had been an odd child, quiet, introverted, and moody. When I grew up, I still felt like that puzzled kid, disconnected, disinterested, and confused. There was no rhyme or reason in that kid's life. My thoughts began to focus more and more on him. I began writing about his childhood, which was really mine. Coming home from school one day, Milo finds an unexpected gift, a highway toll booth, a map, and directions to a place called the lands beyond. So off he goes on his journey of discovery. He travels to Dictionopolis, the kingdom of words, to Digitopolis, the land of numbers, goes astray by jumping to the island of conclusions, and at last rescues the two princesses, Rhyme and Reason, from the castle in the air. Not everyone in the publishing world of the 1960s embraced the Phantom Tollbooth. Many said that it was not a children's book. The vocabulary was much too difficult, and the ideas were beyond kids. To top it off, they claimed fantasy was bad for children because it disoriented them, and that no child should ever have to confront anything that he or she didn't already know. But my feeling was that there is no such thing as a difficult word. There are only words you don't know yet, the kind of liberating words that Milo encounters on his adventure. Today's world of texting and tweeting is quite a different place, but children are still the same as they've always been. Well, maybe one thing has changed. As many states eliminate tolls on highways, some children may never encounter a real toll booth. Luckily, there are other routes to the lands beyond, and it is possible to seek them and fun to try.
Norton Juster is the author of The Phantom Tollbooth, which is celebrating its 50th anniversary this year. He and illustrator Jules Feiffer will join us later this month for NPR's Backseat Book Club. Young listeners can read the book and then email questions for Juster and Feiffer to backseatbookclub@npr.org.
It's called The Phantom Tollbooth, and it's by Norton Juster. Recently, it just celebrated its 50th anniversary, which means the book has been around for over 50 years and people are still enjoying the story. So what is the story about? For Milo, everything's a bore. When a toll booth mysteriously appears in his room, he drives through only because he's got nothing better to do. But on the other side, things seem different. Milo visits the islands of conclusions. You get there by jumping. learns about time from a ticking watchdog named Tock, and even embarks on a quest to rescue rhyme and reason. Somewhere along the way, Milo realizes something astonishing. Life is far from dull. In fact, it's exciting beyond his wildest dreams. So join me as I read a chapter of this book, The Phantom Tollbooth by Norton Juster. Chapter 1. Milo. There was once a boy named Milo who didn't know what to do with himself. Not just sometimes, but always. When he was in school, he longed to be out. And when he was out, he longed to be in. On the way, he thought about coming home. And coming home, he thought about going. Wherever he was, he wished he was somewhere else. And when he got there, he wondered why he bothered at all. Nothing really interested him, least of all the things that should have. It seems to me that almost everything is a waste of time, he remarked one day as he walked dejectedly away from home from school. I can't see the point in learning to solve useless problems, or subtracting turnips from turnips, or knowing where Ethiopia is, or how to spell February. And since no one bothered to explain otherwise, he regarded the process of seeking knowledge as the greatest waste of time of all. Sounds familiar? And as he and his unhappy thoughts hurried along, for while he was never anxious to be where he was going, he liked to get there as quickly as possible. It seemed a great wonder that the world, which was so large, could sometimes feel so small and empty. And worst of all, he continued sadly, there's nothing for me to do, nowhere I care to go, and hardly anything worth seeing. He punctuated this last thought with such a deep sigh that a house sparrow singing nearby stopped and rushed home to be with his family. Without stopping or looking up, Milo dashed past the buildings and busy shops that lined the street and in a few minutes reached home. Dashed through the lobby, hopped onto the elevator, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and off again. Opened the apartment door, rushed into his room, flopped dejectedly into a chair and grumbled softly. Another long afternoon. He looked glumly at all the things he owned, at the books that were too much trouble to read, the tools he had never learned to use, the small electric automobile he hadn't driven in months, or was it years, and hundreds of other games and toys and bats and balls and bits and pieces scattered around him. And then to one side of the room, just next to the phonograph, he noticed something he had never seen before. Now, students, what is a phonograph? It's spelled as PHONOGRPH. Google that. Who could possibly have left such an enormous package in such a strange one? For while it was not quite square, it was definitely not round, and for its size it was much larger than any other big package of similar dimensions that he had ever seen. Attached to one side was a bright blue envelope which said simply, "For Milo, who has plenty of time." Of course, if you've ever gotten a surprise package, you can imagine how puzzled and excited Milo was. And if you've never gotten one, pay close attention, because someday you might. I don't think it's my birthday, he puzzled, and Christmas must be months away, and hadn't been outstandingly good, or even good at all. He had to admit this even to himself. Most probably I won't like it anyway, but since I don't know where it came from, I can't possibly send it back. He thought about it for quite a while and then opened the envelope just to be polite. "One genuine turnpike toll booth," it stated, and then it went on. "Easily assembled at home and for use by those who have never traveled in lands before." Beyond what? Thought Milo as he continued to read. "This package contains the following items: one genuine turnpike toll booth to be erected according to directions, 3 precautionary signs to be used in a precautionary fashion, assorted coins for use in paying tolls, 1 map up to date and carefully drawn by master cartographers depicting natural and man-made features, 1 book of rules and traffic regulations which may not be bent or broken. And in smaller letters at the bottom it concluded, results are not guaranteed, but if not perfectly satisfied, your wasted time will not be refunded. Following the instructions, which told him to cut here, lift there, and fold back all around, he soon had the toll booth unpacked and set up. Up on a stand, he fitted the windows in place and attached the roof, which extended out on both sides, and fastened on the coin box. It was very much like the toll booth he had seen many times on family trips, except that, of course, it was much smaller and purple. What a strange present, he thought to himself. The least they could have done was to send a highway with it, for it's terribly impractical without one. But since at the time there was nothing else to do, he wanted to play with, he set up the signs with, slow down the approaching toll booth, please have your fare ready, have your destination in mind, and slowly unfolded the map. As the announcement stated, it was a beautiful map in many colors showing principal roads, rivers and seas, towns and cities, mountains and valleys, intersections and detours, and sites of outstanding interest, both beautiful and historic. The only trouble was that Milo had never heard of any of the places that indicated, and even the names sounded most peculiar. I don't think there really is such a country, he concluded after studying it carefully. Well, it doesn't matter anyway. And he closed his eyes and poked a finger at the map. Dictionopolis, read Milo slowly. When he saw what his finger had chosen, oh well, I might as well go there as anywhere. He walked across the room and dusted the car off carefully, and then taking the map and rule book with him, he hopped in and, for lack of anything better to do, drove slowly up to the toll booth. As he deposited his coin and rolled past it, he remarked wistfully, I hope this isn't an interesting game. Otherwise, the afternoon will be so terribly dull. That's chapter 1 for you.